Hey, Bruins. My name is Ann Wang, and I am one of the directors on the UCLA Alumni Board. I am so excited to welcome you on behalf of the UCLA Alumni Association. Tonight, I am personally geeking out and so excited to welcome Kimberly Writt, who will be sharing tips on how to apply Scandinavian principles to appreciate your surroundings and live happier. This way of intentional living can help you counter the stress and uncertainty of everyday life by encouraging wellness and mindfulness. Kimberly is a Chicago-based integrative wellness coach and yoga and meditation instructor with more than a decade of experience in marketing and brand strategy for top interior, architecture, and real estate clients. We look forward to hearing about how to develop a healthy and sustainable practice that will nourish our mental health and well-being. Welcome, Kimberly. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you to everyone for joining me tonight. I'm very, very excited to be here, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get right into the presentation. Perfect. So as Anne mentioned, today we will be covering Nordic living, how to apply Scandinavian principles to appreciate your surroundings and live happier. So with that, we will dive right into it. Okay, so thank you to UCLA, like I mentioned, for having me. And tonight what we'll be covering is a little bit more about BHUE, the brand that I recently launched, as well as color psychology, getting into the inspiration behind BHUE, what is hygge, why lagom is necessary, why we all deserve fika, and a quick visualization exercise that pulls all of this together, as well as a short Q&A portion. And I did receive some fantastic questions prior to, which we will get to some of those tonight, and I highly encourage everyone to follow up with me directly. If your question is not answered, I want to make sure to get to all of them. So what is BHUE? The brand that I started is a wellness brand that really empowers home and design professionals and enthusiasts to increase energy, improve mental clarity, and overcome stress, ultimately so that you can all be your best selves and attract like-minded people and clients. So this whole idea of being you is a play with BHUE of being you infused with color. You will see throughout my presentation, and if you go into any of my website or marketing collateral, that I truly believe that color has an integral impact on our well-being in a number of ways, and I will touch on that tonight. So as many of you may know, color is wavelengths of light, and each color has its own frequency, just like we as humans operate at our own frequency and are attracted to other people and colors because of their frequencies. There's also been a lot of news recently, if you've been following on any shelter publications or design websites, even wellness websites, about this direct correlation between neuroscience and color. And neuroscience really supports that the brain's processing of color can actually release neurotransmitters that provoke different types of feelings that can impact our mood, our attention span, and even our decision-making capabilities. So personally, I find it fascinating, and I could actually go into a full presentation just on that, but we will just be touching on it tonight. So this is a very quick snapshot of some characteristics or personality traits, I like to say, as they relate to specific colors. I am actually working on something I'm really excited about and has yet to be released to the public, and it's called A Colorway to Wellness Guide. This is a quick snapshot of that and really encompasses some of those key areas that I focus on in my personal program with individuals and with business entities. Those three areas, which we'll get to on the next slide and are captured here as well, are energy or chakra needs, design in your surroundings, as well as taste and nutrients. So the Colorway to Wellness Guide dives deeper into these areas, provides a quiz and tips on how to really infiltrate and incorporate them into your everyday life in order to find that optimal well-being that we all strive for. So as mentioned, color can really impact your well-being, whether it be informing your chakra needs. I always like to use the example of anahata, which is located in your heart center. It is the fourth chakra. And if you are seeing, I like to say, seasonal colors. So Your color choices, just like your chakra needs, can absolutely change seasonally. If you in a season are seeing a lot of green, it can imply two things. It can either imply that your fourth chakra is on overdrive, that you are feeling the love, that you're super open to new people, new experiences, your heart is open and you are ready. Whereas it could also imply that you are lacking in that area, that you might have a boundary or wall up, that you're a little bit closed off and you're not quite ready for that. And it's super relevant to the current day because we're transitioning into this new way of living, being exposed to people and new experiences again, like we haven't been in years. So pay attention, especially to green, if it's a color that you've been noticing lately. Nutrition. It's been scientifically proven, and they always say eat a more colorful plate. There's reason and evidence to support that. It's super important to note that everybody and every body is different. So the way that your body infiltrates or absorbs those nutrients and the biofeedback that your body provides for you is something super important to listen to. So even something as simple as, you know, your stomach growling after eating the same food for a week could be an implication that it's just not maybe the nutrient you need or something that your body is craving during that week or during that time of your life. So we definitely delve into nutrition in my program as well. And then my favorite area and a huge reason why I chose home and design professionals and enthusiasts is this idea of your surroundings and the fact that in the last few years, we've been using our home especially in such multifunctional ways and really understanding how to create boundaries, but also how to set up your space to maximize color, texture, just the way that you interpret that space. So we will delve deeper into that tonight as well. So a few quick tips with color, and then we will really transition more into Nordic principles of well-being, one of which is diversify. As mentioned, incorporating different fruits and vegetables, the way that your body absorbs not only the toxins from some fruits or vegetables, but also the nutrients changes, which a lot of people don't know. So making sure that you're constantly switching up your diet. Visualizing, which we will get to practice briefly tonight, pinpointing the color of whatever chakra you're either lacking or maybe on overdrive, and visualizing it as this ball of energy to help illuminate your body from within and physically morph, create that energy is super important and something that's a lot more accessible than I think people realize. Space planning, so going back to the environment, breaking down the colors in each room of your space to determine if the yin and the yang, so that feminine and masculine energy is balanced, and if it's balanced for you, if it's balanced for the people in your life, and really adjusting accordingly. And then be bold. You will never see me on a Monday in what I call dull color, because I always know Mondays are going to be tough. So it is pulling out, the opposing energy of whatever color in your food, your dress, your decor on a day where you just feel like the energy is not there, and inviting the opposing energy to make its way in and to accept it and to almost fake it till you make it and own it. So we will get into that as well. And Anne touched on this in my introduction, but like she mentioned, I have worked with designers, interior designers, architects, real estate professionals in a number of ways over the last decade plus. But one thing that I really identified in working with them is that the home is such a personal space, and even an office space, whether you're in residential or commercial design, there's so many personal needs that come out of that space. And designers really do a fantastic job of capitalizing on what form and function mean and how to create spaces that are both beautiful in form and also functional. But when they work with me, we really take that functional element to the next level. So it's driving home how to make it functional, but how to make it functional in a way that is optimal to one's well-being in that space. And then this can really apply to many industries these days, but industry demands. I think not only are designers, especially residential these days, working long hours, with the increase in home buying, with the increase in redesigning home because people are spending so much time, but also creating those boundaries with the client and understanding that they don't always need to be a mediator between husband and wife or answer late night calls, so on and so forth. So like I said, no matter what industry you're in, I work with people on that as well, and it's so important to set up those boundaries. So how the heck does this relate to the Nordic principles of happiness? A quick fun fact here, since 2013, Nordic countries like Denmark and Finland have ranked the highest in a global study on happiness. How is this measured? And this is according to the Happiness Research Institute. It's GDP per capita, it's healthy life expectancy, freedom to make life choices, social support, generosity, and an absence of corruption. So all really interesting elements and things that are measured just to take note of and better understand. And according to this Nordic culture, there are really two definitive versions of happiness. So one is pronounced lycka, which is this elusive thing that you experience that happens less frequently. I like to use the example of either a wedding or a presentation that you spend months planning, excited for, energized, have all of those emotions, and then you do it and it goes fantastic and it's such a wonderful experience, and then it's over and it's like this super high followed by this slow decline of like what's next or what else do I have to prepare for, whereas glad is choosing to be happy on a consistent basis. And really that is what we will dive further into today, and how the Nordics really have it mastered is this idea of glad. So key contributors to happiness. These are just a few, but I would say the most top line and important. So biology and genetic makeup, where you're from, what your heritage is, health, income, relationships, satisfaction with life status. I think this one is absolutely important, especially right now as a lot of us transition into these new roles, into this new way of living and understanding, who we are, where we came from, who we are now, and what that means for the longevity of our health moving forward. And then the one that we'll dive into the most today is really location and surroundings, and appreciating, no matter if you're in Sweden or in Chicago or in LA, what that surrounding looks like, and in that moment, how to appreciate it in a different way. So what is this key to happiness? This is what we all want to know, right? So I touch on this in programs and speeches and everything, but it really truly boils down to knowing how to appreciate your current surroundings. So based on the questions that were provided early on, I think a lot of you have a general understanding of some of these principles, and I pulled out what I felt were not only the most relevant to today's time, but I think just ones that are the most relatable. So today we will only cover three. There are absolutely more than three, but the first three, or the main three that we will cover, are hygge, lagom, and fika. So the first of which, and everyone always asks, how the heck do you pronounce this word? I like to say that you pretend as if you're about to whistle. So you purse your lips and it's like who, and then the second syllable, the ga, is almost non-existent. So it's like hygge. So everyone to yourself, say it out loud, try it out with me. But it is one that I will constantly be mastering. Hopefully did it justice. And it really is more of a state of mind. So it's a way of living simpler through prosperity and balance. And some of the things that come into play with this balanced life are coziness, comfort, intimacy, and all of these things lead to that level of happiness. So you will notice that I am really a fan of alliteration. Not only do I think it just rolls off the tongue better, but I actually do it for a purpose. I hope that people who understand my presentations and really get a feel for them come away remembering them because of the keywords and the alliteration I use. So with hygge, I went for the three N's, the first of which is nest. So I think this applies to anywhere you go, whether you're in your home or in your morphed office space, wherever it is, but it's really identifying your space. And I say your, like there is no tomorrow, because it's yours to own, and it's your own nook that no one else can touch, or that you can at least step away to at some point when the kids have gone to bed, or whatever environment you're in. In the Nordic culture, they reference it as a hygge. So it's your nook or your retreat from all those chaos and distractions. And I think the biggest thing here is that people almost feel like it's selfish to go there, or they're not allowed, or they can't take the time. But I highly encourage you, even if it's 10 minutes a day, to take the time and to go into that nook and to practice whatever that means to you in order to calm your mind, body, and soul down, and to do it often. So often my husband actually laughs at me because I call it my lounge, and it's just 2 chairs, nothing fancy. But he knows that when I'm sitting there, it means that I'm taking that time to decompress, whether it's meditating, whether it's reading a book. And he respects that, and he comes back 10 minutes later and checks in and says, can we talk now? And if you're able to set up a boundary with your significant other or your children or whoever it is, to say, this is my hygge, this is my nook, check back in 10 minutes, it will become more of your daily routine. So I highly encourage you to try that. The second of which is nurture. Nordics love nature. They absolutely love biophilia, and I'm such a relevant topic now. It has been for years, but I think even more so now, because people weren't able to get out into nature as much. Maybe you were in LA, we weren't as much in Chicago in the last few years, but looking for innovative ways to bring the outdoors in. Not only can that be done through plants, through herbs, but also through the earth elements. So wood, metal, really doing your research and thinking, we won't touch on feng shui today, but doing your research on how feng shui can be incorporated as well, which is another topic I do cover in my program, but just something to touch on. And then taking note of the moments that you feel safe and happy, and inviting more of them in. So this seems super self-explanatory, but if you really sit back and think for a moment throughout your day, how many times you address either to yourself or to someone that you're kind of venting throughout the day, it's usually, I would say, majority negative, or the things that didn't go right that day, the things that stressed you out. How often do you say, oh, that, one meme or that one email or that one phone call made me laugh or made me smile? So I think it's important to not only address that in the moment that it happens, but to literally either mentally or physically take note of it, and then figure out ways to make that more of that part of your day, so that eventually it's almost like weeding out some of that negative stress or negative emotions and inviting more of the positive happiness that you truly do deserve into your day. So our second principle that we'll be covering tonight is lagom. So it's like the word log, and then if you've ever been in a yoga or meditation class, just like you say it or chant it, it's om. So it's like really rounding out that O sound. And this is really about balance. So it's really about just the right amount, not too much, not too little, thinking about moderation, reason, equality, and really slowing down, which I say in a slow way because it's easy to zoom through life and to zoom through whatever we have to go to without really taking the time to give it the attention it deserves. So with this, lagom is really about the 3 P's. The first of which is portion. So when I was in meditation teacher training, we did this exercise, and I'm going to encourage everyone to try it in the next couple of weeks. But basically, you take the time and you pull out a recipe. It can be any recipe that you've been dying to try that has, a bunch of weird ingredients that you wouldn't normally buy and takes a long time to make. And you spend that quality time creating the recipe, creating an ambiance as you make that food, and appreciating the sensory details, the sound of the music, the smell of the food cooking, all of the things that make it that sensory experiential, thing. And then once you have the food prepared, you sit down, preferably or recommended by yourself. If you do have someone that you that you have to invite in. Just know that the goal is to be silent, and to really appreciate every single bite and to eat it slowly. You will be shocked by the experience. It can be a little uncomfortable. However, it's such a cool thing that I don't think people fully understand why it's important and how important it is, because it teaches you discipline, it teaches you appreciation, it teaches you just understanding the colors, the textures, and the sensory details that go into everything you do in life, and at the very root of the food that you intake. So I highly encourage you to try that, and to report back. I'd love to hear from you on how it goes. And the second is the Marie Kondo way of life. If you've read her book, is prevent. And that's really preventing a busy space and mind by consistently decluttering and removing items and thoughts that don't bring you joy. So we kind of going back to that area of hygge, where it talked about, venting or ruminating on some of those negative thoughts and emotions. It's ridding of that. And it's not only ridding of it, but it's addressing it in a way that's appropriate to you. So, it's okay to allow those emotions to come in. It's not like you need to shove them under the rug, but it's giving them their time to kind of sit there and to, just to take the thoughts that they need to take, but then allowing them to just move on. So it's not ruminating, it's not forgetting, it's kind of that happy medium where you're just able to appreciate them and then let them go. And the same thing applies for your space. So if there's something from a past relationship or from someone in your life that maybe passed away that is consistently giving you some type of mood, some type of feeling and emotion, maybe considering just removing it altogether or putting it in a different area where you're not going to see it all the time and it's not going to impact your well-being. And then present. I think right now we are in this weird stage of extremes, right? So we've been doing everything either in excess or not at all because we've had to adjust to that lifestyle. And I think that it goes without saying where we might be going back into a world that we don't fully know who we are right now. Like I mentioned that earlier, we don't know what our role is. So it's understanding that it's okay to be a little uncertain or to feel like you need to overcompensate, but really like addressing those feelings before you go into a space or into a presentation or into even, handling a situation with your kids or your significant other, and being kind to yourself, giving yourself some grace, allowing those feelings to settle so that when you are there, you are your true self. You are acknowledging that who you are meant to be is in that moment. And then the last one is fika. So fika is really about setting aside time. They say specifically coffee breaks. It doesn't necessarily have to be coffee. I know that was one of the questions. And other rituals. It could be a ritual. It could be really anything that you do where it's considered part of your daily routine and it helps you appreciate the present moment. So general principles that go along with that are really understanding how to unplug, when to step away, how to reset and recharge, and then truly how to enjoy that time. A lot of times I think people, myself included, even when you do have time to relax, you don't know what to do with it. You're like, I don't know if I deserve this, or I should be doing this, or answering this email, or, calling my grandma, whatever it is. And I think it's just really embracing that everyone deserves that quality time. So I chose the 3 R's for this particular topic. The first of which is relish. So we talked about this before, but practicing that mindful eating and drinking by enjoying the process and sensory experience. So with that, not only is it important to take the portion control aspect into play, but also to continuously go back to this idea of mindful eating and to see if you can apply it even when you're in crowds or even when you're in situations where it's easier just to decompress by, eating that takeout or chugging that glass of wine, whatever it is, but really understanding that it should be an experience and it is a reward. Food is a luxury. alcohol or juice or water, whatever you're putting into your body is a luxury, and it should be appreciated in a way that serves your body in a productive manner. So really keeping that in mind. And then rejuvenating. Self-care is such a broad term these days, and I think it sometimes can get used in ways that people either just immediately think it's just this, selfish way of taking time away from the things that you should be doing, or it's too much of a luxury. It's something that is more so meant to be this consistent practice. And I like to say the 2-minute rule. If you have 2 minutes to step away and to practice breath work, then you have 10 minutes to step away and to do some stretches. You can always fit in the time, but you have to start. You just have to start somewhere, even if you're not ready. That's one of my favorite sayings, is start before you're ready. And it definitely applies here. So knowing that if you take the 10 minutes to meditate, or if that's not your gig, to practice breath work, to take a bubble bath, to read, to do all those things that feed your soul, and then in turn, you are present for others and you are present for yourself in a different way, do them, and do them often, and make time, whether it's in the morning, before you go to bed, whatever it is, do them and practice them often. And then the last thing I talk about a lot in my program is your top 5. You are a direct reflection of the top 5 people in your life. And I think the interesting thing to note there is, for those of you in the crowd that have been living alone during quarantine, that could literally be a podcast host or a television character. If you're not physically with people, or you haven't been for a while, you can start to absorb the personality traits of the people, video game character, whatever it is, that you're surrounding yourself with. So I highly encourage, there was something in the questions about, news sources and paying attention to news. Of course, it's important to know what's going on in the world, but understanding if that news source may be a detriment to your day, if it's the first thing you look at, and maybe shifting it to a different time of day, or only absorbing it every other day. And then also with people in general, making sure to appreciate those top 5 people. So making sure to devote time to calling them, or if you know something big is coming up for them, literally putting it in your calendar to send them a text or to remind them, and to really make them feel special, appreciate them. And in turn, it might not be directly from them, but the universe will pay you back. The universe will acknowledge you in a different way. So it's important to continuously share that wealth and to continuously enjoy and celebrate each other. So what is the main goal of this way of living? It really is all about harnessing an abundance mindset and going back to those 2 versions of happiness that we discussed, and figuring out how to be glad. So really is about not just going for that short-term fix. I like to use this phrase in my program, tidying versus cleansing. So tidying is really that Band-Aid approach, where you do something, the shove under the rug approach, where you do something to make yourself feel better in that moment, and it feels so wonderful, and then 10 minutes later or a day later, you're right back to where you started. So it's starting to incorporate these practices in a way that fuels you, creates a creative environment, and helps you really harness this abundance mindset. And one way of doing that is through this visualization exercise that not only incorporates these Nordic principles, but also ties in my love for color. So with that, I would love for everyone to find a comfortable seat. It can be on the ground, it can be in your chair, wherever you're at. I just want everyone to sit up nice and tall. And no matter if you're on your glutes on the floor, if you're in a chair, just relax your palms on your legs or on your sides. Root your shoulders back over your hips. So you have this nice tall spine, and you're able to breathe from your diaphragm. So we'll open with a few diaphragmatic breaths just to get us started. With your eyes still opened, I want you to take a nice big inhale through your lower stomach region, through that diaphragm. So feel your belly expand on the inhale. And then feel your chest expand on the exhale. Yeah, beautiful. Take a few more just like that, in through that lower abdomen region. Exhale through your chest. Try to keep your shoulders relaxed. Inhale and exhale. Nice. Take one more. And then on your next inhale, close your eyes. Continue to find this cadence of breath on your own. And just continue to breathe as you settle into your space, unwind from your day. Begin to feel your body start to get heavy. Down from your toes, up through your knees, your thighs, your glutes, your abs, all the way up through your chest, your back, root your shoulders down, your neck, even your head. Feel your entire body decompress. And just continue to breathe here. Take a few moments to practice that fika, that short coffee break, or that really a beautiful moment of silence on your own. And as you feel settled, I want you to start to acknowledge a time in your life when you were truly happy. Without putting too much thought into it, just locate one specific memory of a time where you felt such an abundance of joy. Acknowledge that time and pretend almost as if you are an outsider, looking in on yourself, watching that memory replay. In this memory, first acknowledge what your body is doing. Are you relaxed? Are you laughing? Are you smiling? Are you dancing? What are you doing in this space? And then take a moment to acknowledge your surroundings. Are you in the home? Are you out in nature? What are the colors, the textures that surround you in this memory, doing to feed your soul? Can you feel that soft blanket? Can you hear the birds chirping? Can you smell the candle burning or the food cooking? What are those experiences that bring that joy back into your mind? Just take a moment to acknowledge this space. Take a big inhale in. Open mouth exhale, let it go. With your eyes still closed and still in this outsider perspective looking in, begin to acknowledge who is in that space with you. Are you by yourself? Are you with friends or family? Are you with animals? Are you with objects that bring you joy? Recognize for a second the significance of those people or those objects or yourself. Why do you think they play a role in this memory? What value do they bring to you? Continue to breathe, just appreciating, reliving this wonderful time. And then on your next breath, picture yourself as that outsider, stepping into your physical body, reliving that memory. What sensations do you feel? What colors, textures, and sensory details are surrounding you in that space, in that time? In this moment, how can you recreate this experience? How can you take elements of what you're feeling and apply it into your everyday life? Take another big inhale, fill up your lungs. Long, open mouth exhale, let it go. Just take a few more moments of silence, relishing in this memory, this sweet time. And then on your next inhale, begin to feel that sensation we started with course through your body. Instead of a heaviness, begin to send a lightness up through your toes, your legs, surround your hips, up through your chest, your back, all the way up into your neck, your arms, swiveling up into your face, and coursing out through the crown of your head. Exude that energy, that light, that beautiful color into the world. And begin to bring subtle awareness back to your thoughts and to your current breath. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Take a big inhale as you shrug your shoulders up towards your ears. And then on your exhale, push them back and down your spine as you begin to blink your eyes open. I wish I could see all of your faces right now. Hopefully you feel lighter and brighter. Before we transition into the Q&A section, I just want to leave you with a few key takeaways from this presentation. One of which is pay attention to color. It's so important, and it truly does impact your well-being on a number of, or in a myriad of ways beyond just the 3 areas that I honed in on. So really pay attention to it, notice it, and appreciate it. Set up your space to be more present. This is something that you will constantly be striving for, and it will be a lifelong journey. But as soon as you start to integrate even the most subtle practices, it will just become second nature, and you will just certainly be able to transition into more of that present moment. And then carve out time for yourself and for others. So important here. There will always be another email you can send. There will always be another phone call or another crisis to avert, but there will never be enough time for yourself and to spend time with others. So really, really appreciate that. And then look to harness that abundance mindset. So really look to focus on the things, the small, little things. It doesn't need to be big, that bring you joy, and invite more of them in for yourself and in turn for others, and to attract those like-minded clients, those like-minded people, and to be the best version of yourself. So with that, I will leave this up here for a hot minute, but this will be sent as a follow-up. So you can catch me for a consultation if you're interested in learning more about my 3-month program, or for businesses, you can check out my website, bhuwellness.com. You can email me at bhuwellness@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram as well as LinkedIn at bhuwellness. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point so we can dive into a few questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Kimberly. I honestly feel like this is such a good time to talk about not only us in our home, but also stimulation and sensory coming out, because we're in this transition period where we've been in this somewhat very unnormal pandemic, but I think people have built a lot of habits and rituals and also connections to their home that are being shaken up again. So again, this is such a direct reminder that sensory environment, mindset, intention, how you choose to live or react to your environment is so critical to just the sense of being or the sense of happiness. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, really excited to just dive in. I'm getting great questions. And I actually am going to start off with my own because, I can do that. But I promise I will get to everyone's question, as many questions as I can. So please do keep populating the Q&A. I'm watching them here. I love to talk about habit building. So I personally, I've been lucky enough to do yoga training. I've always been really intrigued by the balance between ambition and mindfulness and that push and pull you talk about, the different energies. But every time, and I feel this from a lot of my peers and even older, I feel overwhelmed by the concept of well-being. The concept itself, the practice itself, the amount of things that you should and could do can be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you have any tips of how do we start building habits that are sustainable, that aren't intimidating, that maybe can build upon to get to that, although it's never perfect, but a little bit of a homeostasis goal era that you're looking for when it comes to quote unquote well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. And I definitely can empathize with it being tricky to navigate and to make sure that it's sustainable. One thing I just want to address, I did touch on the word balance, and the Nordic principles and life in general as it relates to well-being often says to create this level of balance. While I do use that word, I think the better operative word here is actually current. So if you think about creating habits and being or practicing your true well-being life, as it relates to a current or the ocean, there's tides, right? It ebbs and flows. So if you think about balance in general, as it relates to like a seesaw, it's one consistent line, which isn't truly manageable and isn't truly sustainable as a human. So instead, thinking about it as a current that, there will be high highs, there will be low lows every single day and throughout your life. And if you're able to acknowledge that and know that this is a really high high, there likely will be something that could happen tomorrow or even in the next 10 minutes. And that's okay. I won't react, I will reflect. So it's taking that time and that approach to really acknowledge that, and then setting yourself up to be okay with it. And with your question specifically and creating these habits, my program itself is 3 months, and I talk about colors in seasons. I love applying well-being to seasons because I do think it's much more digestible. Everyone talks about their New Year intention or their 6-month goal or whatever it is. But I think if you break it down by seasons, and a lot of companies work in quarters, Q1, Q2, what have you, it's a lot easier to stick to those goals because it gives you something that's a little bit more tangible and enough time, but not too much time to practice. So I like to say, if let's say you are awful at self-care, you want to be better at it, you want to take that time for yourself, but you just don't know how to do it or how often to do it. I like to encourage people to set up calendar reminders and to pick 2 to 3 things that they're interested in but may not have tried, or 2 to 3 things that they have tried that they know are absolutely amazing for their well-being, and to practice them throughout that season and then shift. So that applies to color, that applies to nutrients and food intake, that applies to even your environment. You shift seasonally, you clean out your closet. So thinking about it in seasons versus like every day or every year, which could be too small or too big, I think is much more digestible. And that's just one tip. I could go on and on, but hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. And we're getting a whole bunch others. So I think there was a question about navigating persistent environmental or sensory distractions. So really things when you're at home or even when you're out, is it that leaf blower? Is it that physical, piece that's always there? Sometimes it's a significant other and you can't leave the house. How do you deal with stimulation that is, or sensory stimulation that is persistent and maybe frustrating?
It's funny you mentioned that, and hopefully they can't hear me. But we have neighbors that live 2 floors above us with 3 kids, and we can hear everything, and I mean everything. And we've lived here now for 2 years, and this is a practice that I had to teach myself. But the best thing I can say is empathy. And I know that sounds weird for a leaf blower or for whoever, but you know, I think we go through life getting really frustrated more often with people. It's the person that's pushing the leaf blower or using the leaf blower. It's the person that's making the noise. It's whoever. And you might not know that maybe that's literally the only time of day they have to blow their leaves or to put their kids to bed or whatever it is. And once you kind of redirect your mindset about it, it's easier to empathize and it's easier to kind of let it go. If you truly can't let it go and it's driving you nuts, look for a peaceful distraction, put your headphones in and put on your meditation music, or I always like to use the 2 to 10 minute rule that I mentioned earlier. So if you are, let's say, trying to put together a report of some kind and you keep getting distracted by things, walk away. Literally go for a 10-minute walk, clear your mind, go do a 10-minute meditation or 2-minute meditation, whatever you have time for, and come back. And it's much more likely that you will not only have the energy, but you will also have that mindset and that that clear, you know, decreasing the brain fog, that clear mindset that you had originally anticipated.
I love that. That's incredibly applicable. And I think that also rolls into another question about the pandemic, which is, how do you suggest making the transition back into being social again, especially if there is anxiety and pressure to do so sooner than somebody is ready or comfortable? And I will say, I have been in that mindset. I am an introvert that is forced to be an extrovert. I'm not ready for it. I've been dipping my toe back in. How do you manage that stress and anxiety?
I think it is not only setting boundaries, so maybe even writing down personally your own beliefs or your own values, because you might be put into a situation where it's an in the moment decision that you weren't ready for and could feel uncomfortable with. So it's maybe acknowledging some circumstances that could happen in the near future and then writing down or acknowledging in your mind how you plan to handle them. And then it's also not being apologetic with your decisions. So literally just giving a straightforward answer and not providing 12 excuses. I talk about this a lot with clients. You know, let's say you're invited to a party and you're not comfortable yet. You don't have to say you're not comfortable yet. You don't have to say that, you know, you haven't been vaccinated or whatever it is. You can simply say, I'm not able to make it. It's not rude. It's just straightforward. And I think people respect people who are straightforward and say it like they mean it in a, you know, positive but enforceful way.
Yeah. And I think some of the social rules have changed. So when you go back to the concept of empathy, I think there's a lot of empathy for transition, and that's both into offices again, that's both into social settings or family, you know, because I would assume that besides the pure extroverts that are out there, everyone is feeling a little apprehensive of what's on the other side of this transition.
Really?
And we can create a lot of empathy and conversation through that. So I hear that. There are some questions just about, you know, intentional choices. How do we inspire intentional choices to not complain? There were there are questions about rumination. There are questions about how do we, you know, utilize some of these principles to deal with our own reactions of anger or resentment. So let's talk a little bit about intentional choice in reactions.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the 5-5-5 rule as it relates to ruminating thoughts or decision making or anything where it's how will this impact me in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 years, you know, and kind of reflecting on each of those timeframes and saying, is this truly worth my time to worry about? And with ruminating thoughts, I think a simple solution there is if you don't already, to practice breathing exercises or movement, something that pulls you out of those things that aren't serving you. So I like the breathing exercise counting breath, which is simply breathing in for 1, out for 1, in for 2, out for 2, all the way up to either, I like to go to 5, you can go up to 9, and then all the way back down. I do share some of these on my Instagram and stuff as well if people are interested, but incorporating a breathing exercise or a walk, it helps you not only kind of take you away, but it reprioritizes things, right? It helps you think about something in a different way, or just focus on the breath. And when you're focused on the breath, you're not ruminating, you're not venting, you're not spending time on something that maybe doesn't deserve that time.
For sure. Yeah. And there's a lot of interest about color, right? And how that impacts us. So there's a question about, are the colors for home that really contribute to happiness specific? Is there data, is there science behind certain colors and happiness or home, or is it really dependent on the individual?
I love that question. And I think it's an interesting question, because every person, even though there are personality traits and ways that an interior designer would tell you, like blue is a serene color for the bedroom, or green is a great way to bring in nature. Absolutely, that is true. But I think as it relates to individuals, it could easily shift and change. So it's really listening to, and that's why I like to use more than one area of color psychology. So like if you are noticing that you've been craving oranges, and you also are really gravitating toward this orange throw pillow, and you're also, creating these colors in your mind, or noticing these colors in your environment, more often than not, it is an indication that that's something you should be listening to. The Color Way to Wellness guide that I'm working on touches on all 3 areas, and does touch on that question a little bit more thoroughly. So the best way I can answer that is, yes, there are certain studies and things that can support color in the home impacts well-being. But personally, I do believe that it is an individual reaction to it, and that reaction can shift with the seasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much in just how, I'm sure there's research on this, but how seasons impact food, they impact habit, they impact social habit, they impact how you think about light in your home. Obviously, I mean, that's a huge one. So I'm so interested even taking color theory into this space of seasonal theory, and also being from LA and growing up in LA, seasons are not necessarily a thing. We have our own version of seasons, and as Bruins, going to school at UCLA, it's interesting to compare those that come from really dense season changes versus those who don't get to see seasons, and actually how that impacts your sense of time and how that impacts your sense of well-being. So just something we can hopefully talk about in a later session, because we are unfortunately running out of time. Thank you again, Kimberly, for sharing these insights and reflections in, I think, a really digestible way. And thank you to all of the Bruins here who joined us for this webinar. Hopefully you are adding this to your checklist as something you did for yourself, and that it becomes a little bit of a seed of that self-nurture as you continue. So I applaud you again for being here and spending the evening with us. We encourage you to stay connected with the UCLA Alumni Association on social media. You can find more virtual programming, a lot around mental health, wellness, and of course, career and other programming on our UCLA Alumni website, Instagram, and YouTube channels. Finally, the UCLA Alumni Association programs and services are made possible by Bruins like you. To ensure the future of events like this and our reach and our impact on both individual level and community level, please make a gift today, or go learn a little bit more about what your gift could do by visiting giving.ucla.edu/alumni. Again, that's giving.ucla.edu/alumni. www.ucla.edu/alumni. All donations of all sizes and amounts are welcome. And look for our email following this event with additional links, more information. And again, if you have more burning questions for Kimberly, we will make sure she gets those. Thank you again for being here. Please do take care. We are excited to be a part of this transition and into a hopefully post-pandemic stage. And again, we are here for you all. Please reach out if we, as the Alumni Association, can be of any support. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much.